Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to your top 10 choices of 2017. Bet y'all thought I forgot! I didn't forget! I was just really freaking busy. Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know what the heck I'm talking about, at the very beginning of January, I asked you guys to give me your top 3 favorite movies, your top 3 favorite games, and your top 3 favorite comics from 2017, and to rank them from number 1 to number 3, with 1 being your most favorite, 3 being your third favorite. Then I went through the entire list of everything that you guys submitted, and I took everything that was in the number 1 position and I gave it 3 points. Everything that was in the number 2 position and I gave it 2 points, and everything that was in the number 3 position and I gave it 1 point. Then I tallied all of that up. So today, I'm going to give you guys the end results. I'm going to tell you guys what ended up being your top 10 favorite movies, top 10 favorite video games, and top 10 favorite comics of 2017. Now, as I said, I know that we are kind of late on this, and I also know this does not look at all like the video did last year. Last year, it was a far more professional looking video in which I came in here and I gave every single one of these topics their own video, in which I listed them all off and I had videos playing and I had scripts written out for all of it. However, here's the thing. This year, in January, as with all Januaries, we decided to focus back on the previous year. Every single January on this channel, it's our time to do our big retrospective of all the stuff that came out in the previous year. And this year I decided, you know what? Typically I always just do my top 10s and your top 10s and all that stuff. This year I want to go nuts with it. There's so many other things every single year that I want to talk about when going into retrospective of the previous year that I never get a chance to talk about. I'm going to try and talk about all of that. And man, that ended up being way more work than I thought. So that's kind of why this ended up getting pushed back. Sorry that it is now coming out in February rather than in January. And by this point, I know most people don't even care about this. But for everybody out there who did want to know what their choices were, we are still doing it today. But also, I'm not doing the thing where I sit down and I have the big numbers pop up and I show you all the video footage of all the things that I'm talking about. Simply because, as I said, we did way more videos counting down way more things from 2017 in January. And I kind of looked at this video and I went, do I really want to do just the exact same thing again? Because if I decide to treat these videos the way that I treated them last year, it would kind of just be another top 10 video. And as I said, we did countless top 10 videos in the month of January. So I just kind of wanted this to be more casual, more of me just staying up here, reading off your choices, and just kind of giving you my own quick little opinions on them. Think of it more like an award show format in which we go, here are the nominees, here's everything that won, yay, give it a little applause, good job, rather than me coming in here and trying to make it just another top 10 video, which, as I said, we have had a lot of over the past month. But also, another reason why we are making this video far more casual than it was last year is because I didn't just want to make a video where I came in here and said, let me tell you all the reasons why this is great. You guys know why it's great. You voted on it. I wanted to make something where I could just kind of come in here and analyze the list a little bit, because as I was going through the list and tallying up all the numbers, I was actually kind of fascinated by what was getting nominated, what was getting so high, and what wasn't. And one thing that I noticed comparing this to last year is that the number of nominees was roughly the same for every single category. However, the points were spread out far more evenly. Like in the previous year, there was one definite winner for movies, there was one definite winner for video games, there was one definite winner for comics. This year, yeah, there's still one definite winner for movie, but every other category was pretty even, and even with movies, once you go past the number 1 film, everything else, yeah, really darn even. Like, it was really neck and neck as I was tallying all these up. And I find that to be very interesting. I think it means that this year, 2017, really gave you guys a lot more games and movies and comics that really interested you. That it wasn't just, here's the thing I like, I'm gonna vote for that thing. There were a lot more people kind of testing everything out there. And I only let you guys vote on 3 things. But I think that everybody is going to be kind of happy, or at least surprised with what comes out of this, because I think that there's many things that people wanted to vote on, but they just didn't have more than 3 slots. So I think that they'll be happy to see a lot of things that they probably did want ending up on this list. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to start with movies, but if you guys want to skip movies, if you just want to jump ahead to any of the other nominations, I'm going to put the time codes in the description down below of when we start talking about every single one of these. And also, if you want to see what every single nomination was and where every single thing landed on these lists, I'm going to put the complete total list down in the descriptions below, which means the descriptions are going to be kind of long for this video. So the time codes are going to be at the top, and then if you don't care about spoilers and you just want to see what everything was, go on below the time codes, go way down, and then you will see what every single thing got. We'll start with movies, then go into video games, then you go into comics. Everybody good? Let's start. Now, as I said last year, every single thing that got more than 10 points, I counted as an honorable mention. But because this year, the points were distributed far more evenly, I'm going to have to bump that up because there wasn't so many things that was like, okay, well, here's only 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, and then 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. I mean, there was a lot of that, but this year, there was a lot more stuff with 20s, 30s, 40s. So this year, everything that got 20 or more votes is an honorable mention. So let's go ahead and begin. And the honorable mentions for movies are Dunkirk with 21 points, Lego Batman with 23 points, War for the Planet of the Apes with 27 points, and Coco with 30. Now onto the official number 10, and as I said, I'm not going to talk that much about every single thing on this list, simply because this is more just the victory lap. We already spent an entire month talking about every single thing that we're going to talk about today. This is just one last time to go, hey, this is what you guys really enjoyed this year. However, I do really have to talk about number 10. Number 10 is It with 43 points. Now, I have to talk about this because I love this film. I thought it was great. I called it the most crowd-pleasing horror film I've ever seen, and audiences really enjoyed it as well. I mean, that's obvious by the fact that you guys voted number 10, but also I remember how much money this thing pulled in at the box office. Everyone was shocked that it made that much money because, yeah, people were really enjoying it. People kept going back to see this thing over and over again because it was just a fun horror film. And the reason why I really need to talk about it is because I couldn't put it on my 10 favorites list, but I really wanted to, and so did many of you, because no other thing on this list got so many number 3 slot votes. As I said, I asked you guys to rank these films number 1, number 2, and number 3 by your personal preference, and then I gave everything at the number 3 spot only 1 point. This thing, if you were to do like a graph of the percentage that every single thing on this list got from every single one of those slots, like how many votes it got in each department, like how many number 1 votes, how many number 2 votes, how many number 3 votes it got, this definitely would be the highest. Almost every single point that it got was from the number 3 slot. Like I think 2 people put it at number 1, 3 people put it at number 2, everyone else put it at number 3. And I was looking at this like, yeah, it's one of those films where you love it, but you like other stuff more, but because you still really enjoyed it, you want it to get something, you want to get some kind of recognition, just other things you liked a little bit more. So I really dig that this being at the number 10 spot was it just barely breaking on through and getting into the top 10 list because, yeah, everybody enjoyed this thing. Everybody wanted it to get some kind of recognition. There's just other things out there that they like more than it. So it being at the number 10 spot and getting up there almost completely from number 3 slot votes, that kind of sums up what this film is. You like it, and you're glad it did well. Because, you know, there's 9 other films that you like more. Next up at the number 9 slot is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with 61 points. I'm very happy to see this game up here. Again, it was something that I couldn't put on my personal top 10 list. But I remember watching this film, I thought, you know what, it's pretty good. It's not as fun as the first one, but you know, I still really enjoyed it. And then in that last act, it just went for the heartstrings. And man, it was in that last act that I went, yeah, this isn't just a fun movie. This actually is a really damn good movie. So yes, it's at the number 9 slot, but man, I'm just glad to see it get something. I'm so glad to see that you guys out there did get an attachment to this film. I know that I have a lot of comic book fans who watch this channel, so it's no surprise that comic book movies are going to make it into the top 10 list. But yeah, I was very happy to see that I wasn't the only one out there who was emotionally affected by how this film ended. Now just barely barely squeezing through and beating out Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 for the number 8 slot is Baby Driver with 62 points. Only 1 point more than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And holy cow, I am glad to see that you guys enjoy this. Again, I have a large geeky audience, so I know that this film got a lot of attention just from the fact that Edgar Wright was the one behind it, and Edgar Wright is a geek god. I mean, he's the guy who did Scott Pilgrim, he did the Cornetto trilogy over there with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. So yes, geeks everywhere know this guy, they love him, but this was something very different from him. It wasn't something that we had seen from him in any of his other films. It's not even a comedy, it's got jokes, but this was a far more serious film, and it was a film that really allowed him to just go, I'm going to show you guys what I can do with the camera. And yeah, I'm so happy to see that people still support him on this. I'm glad to see that the geeky community out there still recognize what an amazing film it was, even if it wasn't, you know, a bunch of video game references or a zombie film or some science fiction thing, or it wasn't loaded with jokes. The fan base out there still looked at it and said, this is still a damn good movie. Number 7, Blade Runner 2049 with 66 points. Okay, speaking of geeky audiences, this is something that the geek community had been waiting a long time for, a follow-up to Blade Runner. However, how many times have you been waiting for something to come out and it just massively screwed the pooch on it? How many times have you been waiting decades for a follow-up to an amazing film that you cared so much about, and it came out and it was just a waste of space? It ruined everything that you had been holding on to and hoping for all this time. The fact that you guys voted this high, it lets me know, yeah, it didn't do that. This actually succeeded, and we did our Quest for the Best in which we looked at this film a few weeks ago, and I said, listen, I might not have been the biggest fan of the original Blade Runner. I liked it. I just didn't love it. I didn't have that connection to it that everybody else did. I love this film. This was the film that made me go, oh, I get what's good about this franchise. I see what you guys see in this now. Yeah, I love this, and it got so close to being in my own personal top 10. So I'm very happy that you guys got in your top 10. I'm glad that you guys gave me another opportunity to come in here and talk about this. Because yeah, I was honestly blown away by this film. However, speaking of my personal top 10 list, if you guys watched that, you know what my number 1 movie was, and it's your number 6 film, Get Out with 72 points. I'm not upset that you guys didn't put this higher on the list. I'm happy you put it on the list at all, because as I said, I know my audience. My audience has a big geeky fan base out there. This is a completely original property. It's not tying into anything else, not based on a comic or anything like that. Totally brand new, and it's a horror film, which I know not my entire audience is really that invested in horror films. This was so amazing just to see everybody out there in my audience go, no, we recognize this is a damn good film. We might have like 5 other films more, but holy cow, I was so happy to see you guys vote this onto the list. If you haven't seen Get Out yet, I know you might not be into horror films, which if you are into horror films, how have you not seen Get Out yet? This is still just an amazing movie, even if you are not into horror films. This is just an incredibly well-acted, well-written film that actually really deserves multiple viewings. I've watched this thing several times, and there's so many lines that I pick up on every single time that I watch it and go, holy cow, that ties into a thing later on in this film that that has a totally different meaning now that I know what's coming later in this film. Okay, as I said, I'm very happy to see you guys voting an original new property onto this list, because I know that you guys are a big geeky audience and you love your geeky properties, so it is no surprise that now entering number 5, everything after this point is just a pre-existing geeky property. But I can't blame you guys for voting that way, because these are some damn good 5 films. At number 5, with 106 points, is Wonder Woman. Now, I'm very happy to see this film gain this high on the list. I'm very happy that it got more than 100 points, because yes, I know that you guys love your superhero films, but you didn't just give it points for being a superhero film. This broke 100 points, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this was just that important of a film. It had that big of a message and spoke to that many people out there. And also, it's the first time we ever actually got a Wonder Woman movie. And kind of like with Blade Runner, it's a big ol' not screwing it up. This was an important film for that audience that had been waiting decades, their entire life, for this character to be captured and put up on the screen and to have her be portrayed in a way that respected who she was. Yeah, it nailed that. So I love seeing you guys actually give this more than 100 points because it lets me know that, yeah, it succeeded for you. Speaking of films I'm glad to see succeeded for you, at number 4, Star Wars The Last Jedi with 111 points. Okay, after this film came out, I really dug it. I said it's not a perfect film, but it's got some perfect moments in there. This film does so many things right, a couple of things wrong, but so many things right. However, we saw so many angry fans out there pointing to those few little small things that they didn't like in here and just pretending like that was the entire film, or it pointed to some things that I loved in here and thought were amazing decisions and just being pissed off at. We saw so many people trying to tank the audience score for this on Rotten Tomatoes to let the studios know that fans didn't like this film. I am so happy to see that you guys came in here and went, no, fans like this film. Fans really dug this movie. We really think that this was another great Star Wars film. So yeah, I love seeing it get this high on the list. Number 3 with 142 points, Thor Ragnarok. I knew this was gonna make it on the list. I was stunned to see it get this high. It made it into my top 10 list, and one of the reasons why is because I think there's actually a really strong message in this film, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys actually voted for this because you appreciated that message. But I know a lot of people out there didn't see that message at all. I listened to lots of critics online, and so many critics were like, yeah, it's just a dumb action film, there's nothing else to it. And it's like, actually, there's a ton to this film. Did you get up and go to the bathroom where they stop and turn to the camera and say what the entire story is all about in this film? But even the people out there who didn't love that message or didn't even recognize that that message was in this film, they still love this movie. Because this is one of the funniest films that Marvel has ever done. It's so weird to think that the Thor fighting Hulk in a big gladiator battle and the death of all the gods is the best comedy that Marvel has ever done. But yeah, man, this is the first of these films that I would be willing to go, no, it's a flat out comedy. You can go ahead and just call it that. And seeing this many people give it this many points, let me know that either you really did love that message, or even if you didn't even recognize the message was there, you still love this film because it's just a well-written, well-directed, well-acted comedy and action film and superhero movie. It's got a lot of things going for it. Next at number 2 with 169 points, Spider-Man Homecoming. I told you guys it was all geek properties from here on out, but you guys know me. I've spoken about this numerous times. Spider-Man is my boy. I love that character. I grew up with him. He has always been my favorite superhero. And he's never really given me a movie that I've been that happy with. I mean, he gave me movies that at the time I really appreciated, but they kind of aged like milk. Spider-Man 2 still holds up. Spider-Man 2 is still a damn good film, but that first one, that didn't age that well. Spider-Man 3 was never that great. Both of the Amazing Spider-Man sucked. So this was the chance for Marvel to come in here and go, we need to get our guy back. He's the face of our empire. He's our boy. We need to treat him right. And just like with so many other things that I've talked about on this list, this is one of those films that you go into and you're like, okay, please just work. Please just like don't get this guy back who you've been trying to get back all this time and then screw it up. And this was a big fat not screwing it up. And speaking as a guy who works at a comic book store, I see so many people come to the store and they only know Spider-Man from the movies and they kind of hate Spider-Man. So seeing you guys give him this many points, it lets me know, yeah, an audience out there is finally seeing Spider-Man the way that I always saw Spider-Man. They're finally appreciating him, finally enjoying him. Yay, just a little round of applause from all us Spidey fans out there. Okay, so that was number 2 with 169 points. The number 1 movie has 294 points. There was more than a 100-point jump from number 2 to number 1. It's rare that I can point at something on a list like this and go, yeah, this is the undisputed champion of the year. I'd say more than a 100-point jump between this and the previous contender. Yeah, that kind of sums it up. As I was tallying up the votes for these, Numbers 2 through number 5, I was like, oh, it could go either way. This gets a couple more votes. Oh man, it could get up there. It could surpass this one. It was back and forth throughout all of this, like Star Wars Last Jedi and Wonder Woman kept constantly going back and forth between the two of them. Thor was in that mix for a while before it finally pulled ahead. It was kind of an interesting race. There was never any doubt this one was going to dominate this list. By the time I got to like the 20th person whose votes I was tallying up, I was like, well, I know who's going to win this. At number 1, Logan. This is a film that I have to stop and talk about who voted for this, because I keep saying, yeah, I have a big geeky audience out there, and the geeky audience, they just love established properties. I had so many votes for this coming from people who was like, this is my number 1 film of the year. Number 2, Lady Bird. Number 3, that World War II film starring Gary Oldman. Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about. Number 2, The Post. Number 3, let's see, go with, just going with Oscar-nominated films. Like, so many artsy films, so many independent films, so many historical films, so many just emotional, low-budget films. Like, the kind of films everybody just hands out awards to. They would make that their number 2 and their number 3. They would still make Logan number 1, because this is just that good of a film. Honestly, I ranted on Twitter when the Oscar nominations came out this year because, again, they only nominated 9 films, even though they're capable of nominating 10. And I know that there's weird rules about how to get up to 10 nominees. But yeah, I've always kind of hated those rules. If you're going to have up to 10 nominees, why not just give us 10? I want to know where Logan placed on this list. I want to know how many points Logan was away from making it into the top 10, into the 10 best pictures. Cause yeah, man, I feel like the only reason why this didn't get nominated for more awards is just people have that prejudice against comic movies, cause like, it's just a dumb superhero film, it's just kiddie stuff over there. This was such a heart-touching, emotional journey that was a wonderful send-off to not only the character of Wolverine and Hugh Jackman's portrayal of him, but the entire Fox X-Men universe. I know there's so many people who want to hold on to this universe, want to keep it around even though Marvel has now bought it. I don't, simply because, yeah man, anytime you can end something perfectly, do it. Walk away from it. That is the best possible ending I can ever imagine to the Fox X-Men franchise. And yeah, it means that we would have to get a brand new Deadpool origin film all over again over at the Marvel studio, but I'm sure they would keep Ryan Reynolds, it doesn't matter. Yeah, aside from Deadpool, everything else can just go. Everything else can just go because that film wrapped up everything wonderfully, but even if you did not follow this franchise, this is just a beautiful film about a man trying to do what's right one last time. This is a film that worked for so many audiences, for so many reasons. There's a reason that you guys gave it this many points and was your number 1 film of the year. Next up, we're moving into video games, and as I said, you had to get at least 20 points to be an honorable mention, and there are no honorable mentions for video games because number 10 got 20 points exactly. At number 10, Sonic Mania. Now, I'll be totally honest with you, I didn't really care one way or another about this game, simply because it's been a long time since I was a Sonic fan, so I kind of lost connection with that franchise. However, I still have a couple friends who are huge Sonic fans, and they have been put through the ringer over the past couple of years, decade, it's been a while. So this was almost like a religious experience for them. They were moved almost to the point of tears to have a Sonic game come out and go, this is it. This is the levels and the music and the gameplay, everything that I loved about the old Sonic, it's back. This, to me, really says that sometimes fans do understand something better than the people who made it, because the people who have been making Sonic, they have had no idea what they've been doing over the past decade. This was a fan-made game that Sega came in and basically just said, you know what? Why don't you guys do it? Let's just make this official. And yeah, it's everything that Sonic fans have been wanting, and the fact that you guys put it at number 10 really says it really was everything that Sonic fans had been wanting. Number 9, South Park Fractured But Whole with 22 points. There is no way to say the title of that game without falling into the joke that they want you to fall into. I keep trying to separate it as much as I possibly can. The fractured butthole. No, still sounds like it. Crap. So, mission accomplished, South Park, guys. But yeah, I didn't play this one, so that's another reason why I made the format of this year's video more casual. I didn't want to come in here and pretend to talk about how great something was that I knew nothing about. But, you know, it's South Park. It still captures that humor that everyone loves from that show. I think that these South Park games actually do probably the best job out of any video game out there of actually making it feel like you are inside the show that it's based on. And seeing you guys put up here at the number 9 spot says that, yeah, you guys still want more of this. Now, at number 8, with 25 points, Doki Doki Literature Club. I don't know what to say about this because the fact that you guys put it up here on the list lets me know you guys have played this and you guys were blown away by it like I was. But also, you can't talk about this game without spoiling too much. This was on my top 10 games of the year list. I had a character from there on my top 10 games of the year, on my top 10 characters of the year list. And every single time that I talk about it, I'm like, there's not really a lot I can say because this is a game that is not what it seems and it relies heavily on the twist. And if you talk about that twist, you spoil the game for everyone out there. But seeing you guys vote on this much lets me know, yeah, it is actually getting out there. People are starting to know about this game. In fact, over the past like 2 months, this game has exploded. I've seen so many YouTubers out there doing Let's Plays of this. The Honest Trailer guys did an episode on this. So it's slowly starting to get to that point where everyone now knows what this game is. So if you still have not played this free game, I repeat, it is a free game. If you still have not played this, go ahead and play it because I'd say within like the next 3 months, everybody will probably now know what this game is. But I first talked about this last Halloween when we did a Q&A and someone asked me, what was the last movie or book that really disturbed you? I was like, last thing that really disturbed me was neither of those. It was a video game, and that's when I first talked about this, and ever since then, I've been getting people on Twitter contacting me going, yeah, I had never heard of this, and I decided to play it because you talked about it, and because you said it was so good. Oh my god, I love this game. Like, I've had so many people tell me that they started playing it specifically because I recommended it, and they are freaked the fudge out by this game, and I get like a little evil laugh every single time that I hear someone tell me, oh yeah, I started playing this because of you. I was like, good. Excellent. Number 7 with 31 points, Nier Automata. I am so glad that you guys voted this onto the list because it didn't make it into my top 10 and I so wanted it to. This game starts off and I was like, yeah, I've played stuff like this before and I don't really care for the designs of really any of these robots you're fighting. I mean, the characters you're controlling look pretty cool, but I don't know, nothing about this really speaks to me. And then the more that I played that thing, I just lost my mind for that. I ended up loving that game. And here's the thing. I felt like the ending was like, you know, I feel like I didn't really get as much out of this as I wanted to. But I know that if you go back through it and play through it again, you get to play through the story, but from a completely different point of view. And then when you play through it a third time, you play again as a completely different character, and it reveals more of it. And eventually by the end, once you play through it 3 times, you have just experienced a brand new game. I so want to go back through and play through this a second and third time. I just didn't have time to do it last year because I had to play so many other games. I'm very tempted to actually make my second playthrough of this one of our sequential Sunday streams that we do over on Twitch where we play through a game from start to finish. Man, this really is such a gorgeous looking game with incredible combat. And there's a story there that, man, I only scratched the surface of it, but there is something huge here. There's something special here. So I was so happy to see that that really spoke to you guys out there. Number 6 with 49 points, Cuphead. Again, this is a game that I have talked about several times on all of our other retrospective videos. So I will just come in here one last time and say, how rare is it that a game gets delayed for this long, and when it comes out, it isn't a massive disappointment? How rare is it that a game gets delayed for so long and when it finally comes out it goes, oh, it was delayed for a reason because these guys were working on it that much. And I love that this game is so hard and so frustrating, but never frustrating to the point where you just give up. And again, the fact that you guys voted it this high onto the list, it lets me know, yeah, even if it was really hard, you had a fun time experiencing those hard levels and hard boss fights. At number 5, with 55 points, that will never ever happen again. But at number 5 with 55 points, Horizon Zero Dawn. Just like with Cuphead, how rare is it for something to be delayed for this long, and when it comes out, you look at it and go, oh, that's why it was delayed. You took a long-ass time getting this thing right. This world is huge and so creative, and the backstory to it is amazing, but the thing that I loved about the most is it's a new franchise. There's a lot of new franchises that came out last year that everybody was really getting excited for. This one, out of all the new franchises, got the highest on the list. But, yeah man, we've got a brand new face for a video game franchise. We have a brand new world to explore. This isn't just the same old games we've been playing forever. I love seeing any new franchise get this much love. So yeah, it was on my top 10 list, but I was even happier to see that it was on your top 10 list. I was happy to see that you guys were very excited to embrace this brand new world with brand new characters and brand new stories. Alright, now as I said, the number 10 spot only got 20 points, and out of the 3 lists that we're doing, that is the least number of points that the number 10 spot got. So you might be looking at that going, well, I guess a lot of people just didn't vote on the video game one. No, it's that everybody was just voting for these top 4 ones. Because these top 4, the number of points jump dramatically from the number 5 spot, and it was a real neck and neck race for a long time between these top 4. Eventually they did start to divide apart. I did start to go, okay, these are the ones that are clearly going to win. But yeah, for a long time I had no idea who was going to pull ahead out of these next 4. As I said, number 5 got 55 points, number 4 got 98 points. That's a little bit of a jump. Number 4, Persona 5. Now you guys might hear that and go, well, wasn't that your number 1 game of the year? And haven't you been talking about how much you love this game non-stop over and over and over again and praising it continuously for an entire year? Are you a little bit disappointed that's at number 4? No, because the Persona franchise is not a huge franchise. It is not something that is a household name. It's not something that everybody out there knows all the characters and all the lore and all this. The fact that this made it to the number 4 spot, that warms my heart. I am so happy to see that many of you went, oh, I'm gonna check this thing out, or I've been a fan for years, so I'm glad to see it return, or it's something brand new, and I'm gonna give it a shot, and I absolutely loved it. Just like with Doki Doki Literature Club, I had so many people this year telling me, you know what, you have praised this thing so much, I'm gonna check it out. And you have all come back to me, and none of you have been disappointed. All of you have come back and said, oh my gosh, it really is as good as you said. I've had so many people contact me on Twitter and on Twitch saying, yeah, this was my game of the year, and I never played a Persona game before this. So this was the time when Persona finally kind of broke into the mainstream. This was when this franchise that I have been loving for close to a decade at this point, finally actually, oh my god, it has been longer than a decade. Man, I've been a fan of this for a while. When this franchise finally got people's attention. Because even though the other games are great, it's been a long time of just kind of being on the fringe of video game culture. Of being that thing that, oh yeah, someone I heard mention that one time. I guess, maybe it's good. I don't know. I've never checked them out. This was the year in which Persona finally became something that everyone wanted to play. Everyone wanted to talk about. It got all the awards out there. So kudos to Persona 5. Alright, on to the top 3, and as I said, Persona 4, it hung in there for a little while, but eventually it did drop off. These top 3 constantly went back and forth. At number 3, with 126 points, Super Mario Odyssey. Now my feelings towards Super Mario Odyssey are kind of my same feelings towards Sonic Mania. This is a franchise that, yeah, it's got its fan base, it's been around for a long time, except, that fan base over the past couple years has been like, yeah, it's fine, whatever, when we're getting Super Mario Galaxy 3. Then this game came out, and it just completely rekindled that love that people had for it. Seeing you guys put it this high on the list, especially for a brand new console that a lot of people still aren't even able to find. Like, there's still a lot of people out there who want to get a Switch, but it just keeps selling out everywhere that they look. So to see that many people were voting it this high, it really let me know, yeah, this is the game that made people fall in love with Mario all over again. This was the game that came in here and said, we're not just going to make the exact same game all over again, we're going to make something new, but it's going to recapture the spirit of Mario, recapture what people love about Mario, and take him on this big brand new adventure. And yeah, it absolutely paid off. And speaking of games on the Switch, just barely pulling ahead. In the number 2 spot with 133 points, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Just take everything I said about Mario, copy, paste, put it here. This is a game that took a franchise that people were kind of starting to get tired of. Because yeah, even if you love Zelda, yeah, the last couple games have been like, okay, yeah, I know how to use the freaking boomerang. Alright, I'm gonna go in this dungeon and just find this thing, and then you... Alright, I know how these games work. They'd kind of become repetitive. They were kind of in a rut. And this game came in here, completely reimagined it, but at the same time, captured exactly what you love about the franchise. It gave you something completely new, and also, just like with Horizon Zero Dawn, just like with Persona 5, just like with Cuphead, this was a game that had been delayed for years and years and years. It went onto a brand new console from the one that it was originally going to be on, and you look at it and you go, oh, I know why, because you put a lot of stuff in here, because you really took your time with it. This was a game that I kind of had to race through it so that I could review it by the end of the year, and man, there came a point in there which I went, I don't want to race through this anymore. I want to explore. I want to get all the materials so that I can upgrade all my armors, and I want to find more of the Korok seeds. I want to do all these things. Yeah, I had to compromise at the end and just go, okay, I'll become strong enough to get the Master Sword, and then I really have to finish this game. But yeah, it's a game that you don't want to finish. It's so incredibly good. It was such a return to form for a franchise that really needed it. And lastly, with 147 points, your number 1 video game of the year, Injustice 2. Is there any surprise to this at all? As I said, I know my audience. My audience is made up of lots of comic book fans. That's what I'd say about half to 2/3 of you came to this site originally for. Yeah, the fact that Injustice 2 ended up becoming your number 1 game of the year, not really that big of a surprise. However, it deserves it. Yes, it was my number 3 game of the year, but I have no problem with someone voting it to be the number 1 game of the year, because this was a game that took not only these characters and everything from the previous game with a storyline that you're like, how on earth are you going to continue this, and found a really damn good way of continuing it. I think the story in here is not only better than the original Injustice, it's one of the best story modes in a fighting game I've ever seen, but the combat is also fantastic. And one of the reasons it's fantastic is they introduce the gear system in here, which is something that when I heard about, I went, how on earth is that going to work? You get all this gear from playing the game, and then you use that to upgrade your characters, and the moment I heard that, I went, man, you're gonna make this a bunch of paid stuff. You're gonna do paid loot boxes, and we saw that with other games this year that just completely wrecked that entire premise and just became one of the most insulting things in any video game this year. I mean, Star Wars Battlefront 2 did loot boxes so poorly, they had to get the government involved in that. That's saying something. But Injustice actually did loot boxes right. That's insane to me. They made them things that you can only earn through the game. You can't spend real world money on them, but you can earn like 20 of them in an hour. You earn them quick, and they give you more stuff based specifically on the characters that you play the most. So if you work on one character specifically, yeah, you're gonna get way more stuff for them. You're gonna get way better stuff for them. That was incredible. And also, this is just massive fan service to all the DC fans out there. The fact that they actually went in there and recorded specific dialogue for every character to interact with every other character out there, that takes incredibly long periods of time to actually make that happen. That had to have been hours and hours of recording for every single actor and for every single writer to come up with every single line of dialogue they needed in this. But they did it because they knew it would make the fans happy. And that's what Injustice 2 is. It's a game that made the fans happy, no matter how much time that meant they had to spend on it. Are you listening, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite? Alright, now closing this out, the thing that many of you were waiting on, the top 10 comics of 2017 as voted on by you. But first, your honorable mentions are Green Lanterns with 20 points, Injustice 2 with 22 points, Runaways with 23 points, and Dark Knight Metal with 24 points. So now, at number 10, with 26 points, is the most unbelievable contestant on any of these lists. I am stunned. This not only got this many points, it actually cracked the top 10. At number 10, 26 points. Unbelievable Gwenpool. Oh my gosh. First off, I'm not looking at this like how on earth did that get this high? Hey man, I put it on my top 100 list. I put it around number 60. I really dig this book. This is a fun series with a great protagonist. I'm just shocked because I didn't think it was going to be that when I looked at it. I remember looking at this book coming out and Marvel was just shoving it in your face. They were making action figures for this character before the book even came out. And it was all based on a variant cover, and they were just going, everybody loves this variant cover, so we're going to turn it into a character. It's like, nobody cares about that variant cover. And they were like, yeah, sure you do. You all love this, right? You were all asking for this. Like, no one's talking about this. No one's asking about this. They just kept shoving it in our face. So I didn't think this was going to be anything special at all. And yeah, it's actually really damn special. This is a fun series. The protagonist actually, yeah, she's goofy and weird, but she's very heartwarming too. You actually go on an emotional journey with her. Man, this is a book that I was not expecting to really enjoy, but I really enjoy it. And seeing you guys put it at the number 10 spot, holy cow, that's the biggest surprise of the year. And a lot of times I will talk about stuff on this channel and hype it up. And a lot of times you guys will come in here and go, well, I wasn't planning on checking it out, but because you said so many good things about it, I decided to check it out, and that's why I really ended up enjoying it. In fact, there's a couple things coming up later on this list that I can actually point to and go, that doesn't sell well at all, but you guys put it up here high, and I think it has something to do with the fact that I've talked about many times and told you guys to go out there and read it. I've never mentioned this book. So it's not like it got on this list because you guys said, well, he said so many nice things about it, I'll go out there and check it out. I mentioned it on my top 100 list, and that's pretty much the only time I've ever mentioned it, and the top 100 list came out after you guys had already voted on this. So this is nothing but the fan base being active and going out there and going, we love this book, we're gonna support this book. It's so sad that this book is getting canceled in 2 issues, partly because, yeah, it's a damn fun book, but now that I'm looking at this being at the number 10 spot, it lets me know, not only is it a good book, it does have a fan base. It's got fans out there that want to support it, that want people to read it. Hopefully he'll be back. Hopefully this writer and artist will come back with this character because, yeah man, it's rare that a brand new character can actually strike this kind of a chord with that many audience members. Now next up, at number 9, just barely squeaking past Gwenpool with 1 extra point, 27 points, The Flash. Now, this did not end up making it into my top 100 list, but it got so close. It was something that I was debating all towards the end of this. Like, there were like 9 books that I was like, man, I want them to be on this list. I don't want them to just be thrown away and not talked about this year. So I am glad that you guys voted this high, so it does give me an opportunity to actually talk about it. I think a lot of people gave this some points because of the crossover with Batman in The Button, because there's a ton of people this year who just voted for The Button, and that was a weird thing. I didn't know how to divide up the points on that, because I was like, well, that's not a series. That was 2 series that crossed over into each other for 4 issues. But by the time that I got to like the 3rd or 4th person giving points just to The Button, I was like, all right, I'll count The Button as its own thing. But if I did end up dividing up the points from The Button like evenly among Batman and Flash, yeah, this would have been way higher on the list. Because, yes, many people did really enjoy the Button crossover, but that's not the only reason why The Flash got on this list. This thing started off this year with the Rogues War that they did, with the Rogues trying to pull their biggest heist yet, and I actually have a coworker who is a massive fan of the Rogues, and I remember him telling me, yeah, this might be one of the best Rogue stories they've ever done, and I kind of have to agree with him. It was a fantastic story, and yeah, I'll admit, in the middle of this year, I think it kind of dipped down with the whole Dark Flash, and I didn't really like the second Reverse Flash storyline they did. But towards the end of the year, man, it picked right back up again. All the stuff that they have going on with Barry now working in the prison, that's a great new direction for this character. So yes, I did really enjoy this book this year, and I'm glad that you guys gave me an opportunity to talk about it again. Next up, at number 8, with 33 points, Black Bolt. Now, when I talked about Gwenpool, I said that there's a couple of books out there that I don't think you guys would really have picked up if it weren't for the fact that I've been talking about them for a year going, this book is really good, this book is really good, everybody needs to check out this book, it's really darn good. Black Bolt is one of those books. I've talked about this book numerous times on this channel, and I'm not saying that you guys wouldn't have discovered it on your own, but I don't think it would have cracked the top 10 unless a couple people out there decided to check out this series because of how much I've been praising it. So I am so happy to see you guys are enjoying this book just as much as I am. This is one of the best character studies and best like emotional journeys I've gone on with the character, as it really delves into his past and all the struggles that he's been on. This is a character who I had no idea how they were going to turn Black Bolt into his own ongoing series, and they did it wonderfully in this series. The art is absolutely gorgeous. I am loving the character of Black Bolt himself and his interactions with all these brand new characters that they've created for him. The concept of putting him on a prison where he has no powers, and now he has to associate with people who are not members of the royal family, and they're completely different from him. Characters like the Absorbing Man, but he actually forms like really heart-touching emotional connections with them. It's just a great premise that was pulled off wonderfully. If you guys have not checked out Black Bolt yet, there's a reason why I put it in my top 10 this year. Now at number 7, another book that was in my top 10, Mighty Thor with 40 points. Dude, I have been talking about how much I love this book for years. In fact, this was my number 1 book 2 years ago. So yeah, it has consistently remained within my top 10 every single year that we have done one of these countdown lists. This book is fantastic, and this was the year in which I think a lot of people who had been waiting for, alright, when's the kaboom? When is all this stuff you've been building up to finally going to happen? And like at the tail end of the year, it finally all exploded, and I can't wait to see what ends up coming up next year. Jason Aaron has taken one of the longest storylines Thor has ever had and just taken his time with it. That's what I love. We live in a world where comic book creators come in here and is like, I got one story I'm going to do real quick and now I'm out. Or now I'm going to move on to the next thing and never mention that previous thing. Jason Aaron has just been building and building. His entire Thor run has just been stacking up dominoes. And this was the year when we actually started to see stuff starting to get tipped over. And man, I am glad to know that you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. Now, that was number 7, but it was also number 6 because, surprise, we have a tie this year. Because also at number 7 and number 6 with 40 points, Detective Comics. Now, just like with Flash, this was another one of those books that, man, I really wanted to put on my top 100. It was so close to getting in there. But in the end, it was just a really darn good year for comics. I just couldn't put it on the list, but I so wanted to because this had some great storylines this year. The storyline with Tim Drake, in which we finally learn what happened to him, and we see the Tim Drake from the future, the one from the old Titans comics, man, that was an amazing twist. That entire storyline, I almost put it on my top 100 just for that storyline. And I think that this book was really solid all throughout the rest of the year, but I would be very interested in seeing how you guys would have voted on this book if that storyline hadn't happened, like if it still would have gotten on here. Because, yes, I really dig a lot of the other stuff that they were doing with that book this year, but that one storyline was so damn good and captured so much of what fans loved about that character, and it took this whole crazy concept that we've been having of what's been going on with the universe, what has Oz been doing, and man, it just cranked it up to the next level. Now, at number 5, with 56 points, almost pulling a Horizon Zero Dawn, not quite capturing that again, but with 56 points at number 5, Doomsday Clock. Now, this didn't make it into my top 100 simply because even though 2 issues of it did come out in 2017, I looked at that and went, these are really darn good, but it's all set up. It's taken its time. If I'm gonna put it in the top 100, I need to wait and see where this is going. I need to see where this is leading. I need to see a little bit of payoff. And at issue 3, we have now started to see a little bit of payoff, and it is indeed darn good. However, even though I looked at those first 2 issues and said, yeah, I can't put it in the top 100 because it's just setup so far, it's damn good setup. Like, it is just laying the groundwork for a mystery, and it's doing it really effectively. And here's the other thing. Just like I was saying with Mighty Thor, I'm really impressed by that book because so rarely in comics does anyone just take their time. Doomsday Clock is a book that we've been waiting on for almost 2 years at this point, and now that it's finally here, it's not like they came in with a massive big reveal at the end of issue 1. Oh my goodness, everything is blowing up at the end of issue 1. Everything is crazy. Here's all the information that you needed to know. No, it came in here after almost 2 years of build-up, and Jeff Johns went, wait for it. This is a book that is taking its time. We're going to make sure that we build this up and do it all right. Because with a concept as crazy as the Watchmen interacting with DC Comics, that's something you can only do once. So you have to do it right. And so far, they're doing it pretty right. Now, number 4 and number 3 are not a tie, but I'm going to talk about them at the same time because I might as well. At number 4, Superman with 65 points, and at number 3, Super Sons with 67. This is another one of those that kept constantly going back and forth. In fact, there was a long stretch of time where these two were tied. Anytime that one would get 1 point, another one would get 1 point. Anytime one would get 3 points, another one would get 3 points. They were constantly just neck and neck, and I was so hoping they would end up tying. But in the end, Super Sons did pull by just a little bit. But Superman last year was your number 1 book of the year, and I was so happy to see that because it'd been a long time since we had a Superman book that just kind of captured this is who Superman is, this is the point of Superman. But also it's been a long time since we had a book out there that showed heroes actually growing and maturing and getting older and actually developing into the next stage of their life. So having a Superman book that not only captured who Superman was, but also showing, yeah, and he can have a family, he can have kids, he can have a wife, and it still captures who Superman is. Yeah, it was great to see that many people out there still really connected with that, still really loved seeing that. This year it was more of the same. It was still that same old Superman book that we had been enjoying. So I'm glad to see that you guys are still enjoying that. But I think a reason why a lot of people were enjoying the Superman book is because they just love Jonathan Kent. I have so many people on this channel who are massive fans of Jonathan Kent. They're constantly asking me to talk about Jonathan Kent, to keep talking about him. They want me to do whole videos on Jonathan Kent. So this year, Jonathan Kent teamed up with Damian Wayne for the Super Sons book. And yeah, it pulled by just a little bit because you guys were waiting for that book. You wanted to see those two characters together. And this book, it's an amazing book for kids. It's an amazing book that captures that youthful spirit of fun and being a superhero. Anytime that parents come into my store and they ask, hey, what would be a good book for my 11, 12-year-old? Super Sons is a book that I always recommend to them because yeah, it's perfect. Next up at number 2 with 76 points, no surprise here, Batman. People this year have started loving the Batman series. I remember last year everybody was like, it's good, but you know, it's not the Scott Snyder Batman. This was the year in which everybody went, oh yeah, because it's not Scott Snyder writing it, it's a brand new guy. I kind of like this new guy. This new guy is doing some interesting things, and I find it so fascinating that so many people really dig it because there's a large group out there that hates what Tom King is doing with Batman. I have heard many people be vocal about that because it's so weird. I mean, this year he had the War of Jokes and Riddles, and that is a Batman storyline about a massive event where we don't see the event. We see Batman's point of view of everything happening beside the event, of all like the tie-in stuff to the event. We never actually see the big battles that he keeps alluding to. And yet, when he pulled it all off, and he actually kind of like revealed at the end, this is why I told the story this way. This is what this was all about. This is what this was all leading up to. Man, it was like watching a magician just reveal his trick. Just watching a magician go, ta-da, Statue of Liberty has disappeared. What do you think about that? It's like, holy cow, I didn't know that's what this was leading towards. Yeah, this was a series this year that really surprised me. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people just absolutely fell in love with this book this year is because of the Batman Catwoman stuff. Just like I was saying with Superman being back together with Lois Lane and having a kid, it's okay to watch your heroes grow. It's okay to watch them get married. It's okay to watch them be in relationships. And this year, seeing so many people just lose their mind for the Batman Catwoman proposal, it kind of says to me, yeah, people were waiting on this. We don't want young single Batman. We want older Batman who's ready to settle down at this point. And the Batman books have been so serious for so long that adding Catwoman in there, she actually gives this book like a sense of humor that it had been missing. And yeah, it makes this book come to life again. And seeing you guys vote this to the number 2 spot, it lets me know you guys kind of feel the same. You guys kind of feel like this book is now re-energized. You have a brand new love for Batman all over again. And lastly, your number 1 book of 2017 with 113 points, Mr. Miracle. This was a huge surprise to me. Huge surprise. I know you might be saying, why is it that big of a surprise? Didn't you make this your number 1 book of the year? Yes, I did. Wasn't expecting you guys to do it, because this book is so weird. This is a crazy book, and not in the, oh wow, can you believe the wacky adventures they're getting into this week? No, this isn't exactly a book you'd call a crowd pleaser. This is not exactly a book that people look at and go, oh yeah, I can't wait for the next issue of that. This is a book where after you read every issue, you kind of just gotta sit there and go, jeez, this is a heavy book. This is a book where on page 2 of the first issue, you see our protagonist attempting suicide. Yeah, it's a heavy, heavy series. And typically when it comes to books that people vote on, the more crowd-pleasing ones, the more fun books, the more uplifting books are always the ones that tend up winning. But then again, you know, I look over at the movies list and Logan won that by a landslide. That is a depressing, depressing film. So it lets me know, yeah, you guys really enjoy the more contemplative books. The books that focus more on psychological stuff. The books that are more emotional, character-driven series. And Mr. Miracle was an amazing book for that this year. Not just with the subject matter that it was covering, but also just with how they were covering it. Like, a lot of people make critiques about Tom King's use of repetition in his series, and yet this is a book where that actually paid off. And he also was able to capture a brand new look at the character of Mr. Miracle and Big Bar, the way that he was actually portraying their romance and their relationship. It's one of the most human relationships I've ever seen in a comic. This is one of the best interpretations I've ever witnessed of a married couple, and these are two space gods from another planet, and yet it felt like, yeah, I know people like that. He did a wonderful job of just completely reinventing them. So yes, I was very happy to see that you guys voted this #1. It lets me know that you guys, yeah, I mean, it's still a DC comic out there, so you guys are still sticking with, you know, the two big companies, but still, it lets me know you guys are not afraid to read the weirder stuff. The stuff that isn't just big superheroes punching each other, but, oh man, this is some deep emotional stuff. So great. I'm very happy that you guys voted this #1. In fact, I was very happy with all the things that you guys voted at #1. Sorry again that this video came up so much later than it should have, but we are now officially done. Kaputs. It is finished. Our look back at 2017 ended up going about 2 weeks longer than it should have, but now we can look forward to 2018. And again, even though this is a ton of work doing one of these lists, it's still a lot of fun. I still always enjoy seeing what you guys have to say. I mean, again, who the hell would have thought that unbelievable Gwynpool would have made it into the top 10? It lets me know, really, where you guys are coming from, what stuff you guys enjoy, and that does kind of help me, you know, think about what to put on this channel more. So, thank you guys again. Sorry that this was so late, but I hope that you guys enjoy all the brand new stuff that we have coming up in 2018. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. And honestly, after about 6 weeks of talking about 2017, I'm probably ready to talk about some new stuff. So make sure that you come back next time. Bye, everyone.